Whenever I perform, people come up to me afterwards and they ask me, "Hey, Snowman, how'd you get your name?" Before I get a chance to tell them, they start guessing. One gentleman asked me, "Is it because you're as pale as the driven snow?" And I chuckle a bit, but then a woman asked me, "Is it because you're round in the middle like a snowman?" Well, I try to explain, "Hey, I've lost a little weight." And the next guy asked me, "Is it because you have a big bald head like a snowman?" I'm wearing my snowman hat, and I say, "Well, how can you see my bald head?" And then another lady asked me, "Is it because when you had your hair, you had bad dandruff?" Well, I pause and I look at them and I say, "Fleury. My last name is Fleury. Like Snow Flurry?" I guess I should have gone with typical overweight, middle-aged, bald American guy. I would have taken the guesswork right out of it. I like fun games. You guys like fun games? Here's a fun game for you. Next time you're at a dinner party and you're a guest, like over at a friend's house, and the main course comes out, after you take a nice big bite of the steak or the chicken, wait for a pause at the table, and then you say out loud, "Oh my word." And as soon as everybody at the table is looking at you with intense inquisition, you say, "This meat is so moist." And check out the faces of all the women at the table. That's one of those words that will cause one of three faces on a woman. One is what I call the good girl face. The girl who gets in and is smiling and trying so hard to hold her laughter back because she knows there's at least one woman at the table who's going to be offended. The second face is the "I'll wait to see how the other women are going to react first before I decide to react" girl, who thinks it's funny but doesn't quite have the intestinal fortitude to laugh. And the third face is on the woman who is completely offended and can't wait to take the knife she is cutting her steak with and jam it in your eyeball. Her face is beet red, there's steam coming out of her ears, and her husband has sunk so far into his chair he could eat off his plate without a fork. If you really want to double down on that one, pick out the woman in the group early on who you think is going to react that way, and stick one of those remote control fart machines under her chair. And just as she's about to lose her mind because you said her magic word, click that button and watch the fun. I came up with a cool idea for a movie. It's called Snowbirds. Here's the plot. Two penguins from the North Pole are forced to leave their home because the climate change crisis is melting the polar ice caps and ruining their habitat. They migrate south and end up in New York City, where they are tragically run over and killed by a New York City cab driver who is in the United States illegally from Haiti and driving a Prius. Remember, folks, irony sometimes is not funny, and not everything out there is actually as advertised. I went to the doctor recently, and he gave me a little business about my weight. The nurse made me step on the scale. It groaned. My doctor told me I had to drop some pounds. Well, folks, I'm happy to report today that I'm down about 20 ounces. He's right, though. Summer's right around the corner, so I got to get into my beach body. I love the beach, or at least I used to. Last time I was there, a bunch of kids ran up to me and dumped water all over me and said, "Keep them wet till we get them back in the water." It got so bad, my local county tax assessor called me and told me I'd have to start paying a gravity tax. My toilet has monster truck springs on it. The last time I flew, I had to go through the metal detector sideways to get through. I got to the gate at the airport, and the airline attendant told me I could only have a carry-off bag. I got on a plane. They made me sit on the left side of the plane with everybody else on the right side to balance it out because they didn't want it flying in circles the whole trip. And the last time I got drunk and fell off a bar stool, it registered on the Richter scale. The poor bouncers, they had to get a forklift to get me up off the floor. It popped a wheelie. Last time I went skinny dipping at night, I caused a lunar eclipse. I walked into a Weight Watchers meeting and everyone stared at me the whole night. I see Taco Bell has this new ad campaign filmed in a church where they show a couple getting married, and right in the middle of it, this gong goes off. And the next thing you see is these people, the bride and groom, walking into a Taco Bell. Well, apparently the commercial guru at Taco Bell wants you to see how important it is to consume their food. So important, it should interrupt your wedding. Well, I agree this guy who created this ad campaign is guru-like, because if there was ever a restaurant that would be on the Gong Show, it's Taco Bell. I mean, can you picture it? Chuck Barris announcing, "And now, Taco Bell." And the three judges are fighting over the mallet to hit the gong before Taco Bell even hits the stage. You know, there's Jamie Farr, who's still mad because they made him wear a tux and not his normal floral sundress because he fails to realize that MASH was no longer on TV. He's trying to wrestle the mallet away from Rip Torn, whose mustache had more product in it than his bouffant hairdo did. And Phyllis Diller is behind them both screaming, "Rip, stop it, you're messing up my hair, and Jamie, get that darn nose out of my backside." You know, then Chuck with banana cream pie all over his face. He tries to save the show by announcing, "Gene, the dancing machine." You remember him? Gene looked like Cleveland Brown from The Family Guy, heading to the bowling alley for free beer night. The band in the corner won't stop playing Count Basie's Jumping at the Woodside. There's bowling pins and rubber chickens all over the place. The big pan of cocaine backstage got knocked over. It's total chaos. But doesn't that bring back memories? Anyways, the true reason for the gong in the new Taco Bell commercial is because that gong is exactly the sound that your stomach makes when that food hits it 5 minutes later. I mean, seriously, have you ever been to Taco Bell at 3 in the morning after the bars are closed and actually made it home prior to completely pooping your pants? I got into a cab one time after a night of bar hopping, and the cabbie asked me, "Where are we going?" And I said, "Let's go to Taco Bell." He says, "Oh, no, we're not." Now, he didn't know many words in English, but he knew Taco Bell, and apparently so did the upholstery I was sitting on. Honestly, it would have been a much better ad campaign if they'd started a Happy Meal box deal like McDonald's has, and the special little toy inside is a roll of Charmin toilet paper. You'd almost be able to deal with it if they did that. I used to chew Trident gum a lot, because 4 out of 5 dentists recommended it. The commercial said so. I mean, it means it must be true, right? One day I was chewing Trident, and I felt a crunch. Well, I take the gum out of my mouth, and lo and behold, I had lost a filling. Then a light bulb went off over my head, just like in the cartoons. That's why 4 out of 5 dentists recommended it, because apparently the main ingredient in Trident is ready-mix concrete. And it messes up your mouth so bad you have to go back to the dentist that recommended it in the first place to get it fixed. Apparently 1 out of 5 dentists actually have a conscience and felt it wasn't an effective marketing plan. So recently I took a flight to New York City, and of course I was early, because early is on time is late, and late is unacceptable. So because I was early, I decided to belly up to this wonderful bar between gates A and B here at the airport in Nashville for a few delicious beers. It was 8:30 in the morning. Hey, don't judge me. It helps me relax on a flight, and if I'm going to die in a plane crash, I want my blood alcohol content at least 0.10. Anyways, I get on the plane, and we take off. We make our way to cruising altitude, which I was anxiously awaiting so I could offload those beers I had at said wonderful bar between gates A and B. I'm starting to wiggle in my seat a little bit as the tide starts to rise, and the guy in front of me decides to heck with that seatbelt on sign, and he heads back to the lavatory. Now, normally, that bugs me a little bit. Like, man, can't you follow simple directions? But on this day, it didn't bother me at all. In fact, I considered him a great leader, a man amongst boys. I gave him a couple of minutes, at which point I decided to follow in his footsteps. I pass him in the aisle briefly, and I say, "Thank you for your heroism." And I go into the restroom, where I unleash the great tidal wave of 2022. Ah, that's better. Well, as I'm standing there relieving myself, I look around, and I notice that there is what I consider to be an abnormal amount of no smoking signs. I then look down to the right and I see an ashtray. I think to myself, now, why is there an ashtray in an airplane restroom? Then I think, well, maybe it was there back when smoking was allowed on the plane. Then I say, well, how old is this plane? Did the Wright brothers fly this plane? And just as I'm finishing up, keep in mind, I'm 52, so my prostate isn't quite what it used to be, so I'm making a mess all over the place. Now I'm panicking because I realize I have to clean up this mess that I've made, and although I wasn't embarrassed for breaking the rules, I will certainly be embarrassed with the fact that people will see my pants look like I ran through a lawn sprinkler on a hot summer day. So I clean up as best I can, and I leave the hazmat scene in the restroom and start back to my seat, doing a turtle walk. I sit down, and just as I get my seatbelt buckled, the pilot turns off the seatbelt sign. The flight attendant walks up to me and she says, "Geez, if you'd only waited 5 more minutes." I look at her and I say, "Ma'am, if I had waited 5 more minutes, this plane would have a brand new sunroof." Well, she walks away with a slightly scorned look on her face, and I lean back, close my eyes, and try to get a few winks of sleep. Well, I awaken to the plane hitting the tarmac in New York, and I start getting my stuff ready to leave. I'm way towards the back of the plane, so I realize it's going to be a bit. But finally, it comes my turn to stand up and leave, and as I stand up, the seat that I was sitting in stuck to the back side of my pants like it was Velcroed on my butt. See, apparently the urine on my pants dripped down and acted like glue while I was sleeping. The people behind me are laughing, and I needed to exit the plane with at least 1 ounce of dignity. So I look back, smile, and say, "Yeah, I've been working on my glutes." So me with my pee-stained pants walk off the plane, and when I get into the terminal in New York, what is right in front of me, just eagerly awaiting my arrival? No, it wasn't the urine police. It was a bar. So, that being the case, I belly up and I have a couple more beers to see if maybe the seat of the taxi I'm about to get into will stick to my butt too. I was thinking the other day about way back when I was a kid and being in Little League. Back before everyone got a participation trophy so no one's feelings got hurt. Little League was so stereotypical back in those days, wasn't it? I mean, all the positions on all the teams were played by like the exact same type of kid. The pitcher was usually the coach's kid, and no matter how terrible he really was, he was the pitcher. The first baseman was usually a big, strong kid who hit the ball a mile but couldn't run. The right fielder was always the worst player on the team because most kids batted right-handed and couldn't hit the ball to the opposite field. The shortstop was usually the quickest kid on the field and batted leadoff and bunted to get on first base because he couldn't hit the ball out of the infield. And the catcher? Always the fat kid. Always. In what position did I play? Catcher. Kids called me backstop because my butt was so wide it would cast a complete shadow on the actual backstop. They called it a backstop eclipse. Then they started calling me Engelbert from the Bad News Bears. At least he got to eat candy bars between innings. I got fruit. What my Little League experience taught me was what I feel we are missing in today's society. The doctrine of sticks and stones. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. What happened to that? People seem to take offense to everything nowadays. Now, I don't condone being intentionally mean to people because I believe in the golden rule. Treat others as you would like to be treated. But here's a little food for thought. The person who is trying to hurt your feelings is looking for confirmation that he succeeded. Don't give him that satisfaction. Ignore him. He's just trying to make himself feel more powerful and pump up his ego. Just smile, say thank you, and walk away. As I leave you today, remember this. Sometimes the most powerful words are those that go unspoken. Thank you. Take care.